So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here again, and this is another episode of Outdoor Living. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the cooking differences side by side between 3 different grills. While I'm showing you this grill comparison, I'm going to go over why they are different in the way they cook and my likes and dislikes of each grill. I've got a CHAR-BROIL commercial infrared grill that's a 2-burner. I've got a Weber Genesis 3-burner. And I also have a Masterforge 4-burner. Now you might be asking yourself, why in the hell do you have 3 different grills in your backyard? And that's a very legitimate question. I got all 3 of these grills for practically nothing. The Masterforge was given to us by a friend when they bought a new one, and we cleaned and refurbished that one, and we've had it the longest. The Weber Genesis, somebody had actually put it out for free in front of their yard because it was natural gas. And I converted that one to propane for less than $40. I'll post a video of that swap at the end of this one if you want to check it out. And then a couple weeks ago, I actually found this CHAR-BROIL grill at a garage sale for 25 bucks, so I decided to go ahead and grab it. What I can tell you right now is not all grills are created equal. Now, one of these grills cooks like a piece of crap, and I'm going to be getting rid of it. The other 2 I'm going to hang on to for different reasons, and I'm going to tell you what those are as well. So I'm going to do side-by-side grilling comparisons on 3 different meats. First, I'm going to do burgers at 73% lean, which means they're really fatty. And then I'm going to be doing some chicken and some steaks. And then since we were running more than one grill, I decided to do some potatoes and cook some veggies on the grills as well. So let's get to it. Now the best test that I could come up with to compare these grills is to cook some nice greasy fat hamburgers. Now the reason I chose this is because this is one of the most dangerous things to cook and the most difficult because the fat drips off and causes massive flare-ups on a grill. Now I wanted to make this grill comparison as fair as possible, so I ended up rolling out this meat on a platter, then cutting it into 6 individual pieces and slapping some patties together out of it. I figured this was the most accurate way without having a food scale of making this a fair test between the 3 grills. So to make this comparison fair, I tried turning all the grills on at the same time, cleaning them all up. If I opened the lid of one, I opened the lid of the other ones, so everything was fair as possible with dealing with this comparison. Once firing them up, I put each of the burners at high to warm them up. I did use 2 burners on the Masterforge because it is a larger grill, and then 1 on the Genesis and the CHAR-BROIL. The Weber was taking a little longer to heat up than the other 2, so I did throw a 2nd burner on there after a couple minutes. I cleaned up the grills and then went in and threw the patties on. So a couple differences between these grills. The Masterforge and the CHAR-BROIL grill plates are stainless steel, and the Weber is cast iron. When we got this Masterforge grill about 3 years ago, it didn't take me long to realize that our food was sticking to those grill plates quite a bit, and I ended up buying a new set off of Amazon to eliminate that problem. Now the CHAR-BROIL grill does use stainless steel grates. However, underneath the actual grate itself is this tray that has a bunch of small holes in it. What this tray does is disperses the heat evenly across the entire tray instead of just directly up and out above the burner. So you get a much more even cooking surface across the entire grill. It also holds that heat back and doesn't let it go up and out of the grill, so it cooks much faster and these grates get extremely hot. I actually had this grill up to 700 degrees at one point, and I was freaking out because I figured it was burning the crap out of the food. However, the food was still nice and juicy inside. It wasn't dried out at all because the fat that falls off of your food gets captured in that tray. And because that tray is running so hot, it actually atomizes that grease and fat and puts it right back up into the food. Now keep in mind, one of the reasons I was reading so hot is because the thermometer on this infrared CHAR-BROIL is right at the grate surface. It's not up in the lid like the Weber and the Masterforge. The only disadvantage that I can see out of this so far is it does create about 3 times as much smoke out of that grill while you're cooking than the other 2 grills. But there is a huge advantage of you don't have to worry about singeing your hairs on your arms while you're trying to flip burgers with this CHAR-BROIL either. And you have to keep in mind with this CHAR-BROIL grill, the only time you're going to get a serious amount of smoke like that is with really greasy or fatty foods. Right here, we're just cooking some chicken and we barely had any smoke coming out of this grill. Now, if you do end up cooking some nice greasy hamburgers, you most likely will want to remove this grate from the tray and clean out that tray. The reason I say that is because that stuff will sit in that tray, and whatever did not atomize and burn off will be there for the next time you end up cooking. The other option to this is just after you're done cooking, leave the grill on high with the lid open and let it burn all of it off before shutting it down. Now the Weber grill actually uses cast iron grates. Cast iron does retain heat a lot better than stainless steel, which makes it much more efficient at cooking and creates a great sear on your meat product. However, it does take a little bit longer to warm up. The other benefit of cast iron is because it's kind of a porous material, it can absorb some of that grease and fat from the foods, basically seasoning it, so you don't have nearly the problem with food sticking to the grates as you do with stainless steel. Now, stainless steel grates, when they're brand new, work great. You don't really get much sticking out of them. But as I told you with the Masterforge, I had to replace those grates because the food was sticking almost every time I cooked with it. I got these new grates off of Amazon. Again, they worked great for the first little while. However, the last couple months when I was actually using that grill, the food was starting to stick on those stainless steel grates again. Now, granted, they might have been a cheaper grate from Amazon than what the originals were. Who knows? The other thing that's extremely noticeable is the difference in weight between the Weber lid and the other two lids of the CHAR-BROIL and the Masterforge. So the reason it's heavier is because it's made out of thicker material, and the bowl is the same way in comparison to the others as well. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, why is that so critical? Just think of the insulation in your house. The better or thicker your insulation is, the better it's going to retain heat in your house. The same concept goes for the grill. So basically with that lid down, it's going to retain that heat in the grill better and cook more efficiently because of it. So some other things to consider is the width of the grates when you buy them, as far as whether a lot of food is going to fall down in between them because they're so far spaced apart. Another thing to take a look at as far as quality goes is the flavorizer bars. This is what is between the burner of your grill and the grate. So these are right above your burner, so they take a lot of heat and a lot of abuse. So you want a thicker flavorizer bar if possible. The ones on this Masterforge are very lightweight in comparison to the ones that are on the Weber grill, which are smaller. One thing I was impressed with when I got this Masterforge grill is that the burners were actually made of cast iron. And we already talked about the efficiency of cast iron. However, with the way that the flame is shooting out of these burners and going up through these flavorizer bars, I think is what causes a lot of the flare-ups. I just don't think it's a very good design. Now, the flavorizer is pretty thin material on this CHAR-BROIL grill as well, and the burners do shoot out the sides, but with that extra tray that they have with this design, it doesn't really matter as far as the flare-ups, because you obviously saw in the video that this just does not flare up on you whatsoever. The Weber flavorizer bars are very heavy compared to the other two, so therefore made of a little thicker material and probably last a lot longer. The other thing is the burner points straight up underneath the bar and therefore probably reduces the amount of flare-ups that you get because the direct flame is completely covered by that flavorizer bar. Now that's just an opinion that I have about this grill. All I know is this thing is a lot more efficient at cooking, and I do prefer cooking on this for a lot of foods besides greasy hamburgers. So right here, I'm going to explain to you guys why I hate this Masterforge grill and the reason I'm getting rid of it. Right here, I'm just cooking 2 burgers, and you can see the amount of flare-ups that I'm getting on these things. Imagine if you had 8 to 10 burgers on here, how potentially dangerous that could be. I have actually singed my hairs and almost burnt my arm trying to not ruin the meat because I had flare-ups so bad on this grill. This grill is also incredibly inconsistent as far as front to back. I've had completely raw burgers in the front and overcooked in the back if I don't consistently switch them back and forth front to back on the grill. With the Weber grill, I did get some flare-ups, but they weren't nearly as bad as the Masterforge, and the cooking on the Weber was much more consistent front to back than the Masterforge as well. With the CHAR-BROIL infrared grill, I never had any flames come up past the grates, so it was a much safer cooking environment. However, the smoke can get a little annoying because there is so much of it. The other cool thing about the CHAR-BROIL infrared is that's about the most even cooking surface across the entire grill between these 3 grills. Now, under normal circumstances, these burgers usually take me about 20 minutes to cook, and that's about what I had them on here. However, because I had the lids open so much, showing you guys the differences in these grills, I made some nice raw hamburgers, and I had to throw them back on the grill. Now, as far as cooking time between each grill, it was all about the same. They were all equally raw in the middle. So I went ahead and threw them back on the infrared charbroil grill because that is the safest one to do these greasy hamburgers on. And I am going to keep that grill for that reason. However, 9 times out of 10, my whole family agrees that we do prefer the texture and taste out of the food that comes out of the Weber grill versus the Charbroil grill. Not to say the food that was cooked on the Charbroil wasn't good. There was just something a little different. And I believe that difference is caused by cooking with that cast iron grate for the most part instead of the stainless steel. The Masterforge looks really nice from the outside, but besides that, it doesn't have much going for it in my mind. It doesn't cook evenly front to back. It flares up like crazy. And by far, I've had the most problem with food sticking on that grill versus the other two. So this was going to be the end of the comparing. However, I didn't get this video edited in the time I thought I would. So we ended up cooking some chicken. Now, I didn't cook the chicken on the Masterforge because I've never trusted myself enough to actually get the chicken fully cooked on the Masterforge grill without burning the crap out of the outside of it. Back in the day when I only had the Masterforge grill, the only way I would cook chicken or pork on that grill was to either bake or boil it first and then go ahead and throw the seasoning or barbecue sauce on it and throw it on the grill for a sear. So that just didn't happen here. I did decide to fire up the Genesis and the Charbroil for this comparison. Now, what I can tell you about this one is I actually do prefer to cook the chicken on the Weber. And the reason for that is that Charbroil grill actually did stick a little bit when cooking the meat. The Genesis did not stick at all. And the flavor was a little better and a little bit more moist on the Genesis than the Charbroil when we were eating. Now, the Charbroil did not smoke nearly as bad, and obviously that's because there wasn't nearly as much fat on this meat as there was with the burgers. So it used to be when we had just the Masterforge grill that we didn't even really grill that much because we were so worried about ruining the meat that we bought by either charring the outside and not having the inside cooked enough because of the flare-ups, or just having raw chicken because of the uneven cooking of that grill. And it was because those inconsistencies in the cooking and having to flip the burgers or whatever back and forth between the hot and the cold part of the grill, you could never really have set times. You would be having to lift the lid to check on your food quite a bit, which just makes for inconsistent cooking. When you have a good quality grill that you can predict what it's going to do, you can set your burgers on, say it's going to take 10 minutes to cook this side, set it and forget it. Come back after those 10 minutes, flip the burgers or whatever you're cooking over. I know it's going to take another 8 minutes, and then come back and they're done. There's no inconsistencies, which makes for a more reliable and enjoyable cooking experience. Now that we've got the Weber and this Charbroil grill, we're using them a lot more because I can predict what these grills are going to do and how they're going to cook, which makes it a lot more fun to experiment and cook out here with the grills. Right here, we're making an entire meal just using the grills and a stove that I added out here. We covered some potatoes in butter and wrapped them in foil and put those on the grills 25 minutes before we started the steaks. And then I actually boiled some broccoli on that stove and then put it in this tray and caramelized them a little bit on the grill after they were done being boiled. And this whole meal was absolutely amazing. And just as the chicken, we all did prefer the steak that was cooked on the Weber grill for the most part, than the Charbroil. So one last item to consider when buying a grill is the location and how big the actual grease trap is on the grill. The Masterforge is very tiny and it's by far the biggest grill. I overflowed that grease trap several times and made a complete mess out of the bottom of my grill. The Weber grill is in a nice, easy location, and it's a good size. And then the Charbroil grill is actually just comes out of the back of the grill, which is very convenient to get to. One other quick side note, guys, is we were walking around Home Depot this weekend, and we noticed that they had these little drip pan trays that fit that grease tray perfectly. There was like 8 of them for $10 and well worth the money. Now, instead of having to clean that nasty tray out, I can just throw it away and put a new one in. So a quick overview, guys, and things to consider or look for when buying or upgrading a grill is what size grill you need for what you're planning on doing. In my case, I'm keeping 2 grills. I'm keeping the Charbroil infrared for cooking burgers or really fatty foods because I like the fact that it doesn't flare up. I'm also keeping the Weber grill because I love those cast iron grates on that grill. I think the texture and the taste coming out of that grill is far superior to the other 2. You also want to consider the construction of all the components, from everything from the bowl and the lid to the grates to the flavorizer bars to the burners. So I guess what I'm saying in short, guys, is don't get caught up on the appearance and the fancy little gimmicks like lights inside the grill and pull-out trays for your propane bottle. That's all just eye candy. What you want to look at is the main foundation of the grill itself, because that's what you're going to be using day in and day out to cook your food. Were the lights nice in the grill? Yeah, maybe when they were perfectly clean. They got sooted over or smoked over and got harder and harder to clean, so eventually they didn't really do much. Was the pull-out tray for the propane nice? Not really. You got to bend over to pull the tray out, so why not just bend over and put the bottle inside the grill? So did those little gimmicks make that Masterforge look like a high-quality, expensive grill? Absolutely. Did they do much in the end as far as what you're trying to actually do with this product, which is cook? No, not really. So just keep that stuff all in mind when you're purchasing a brand new grill or upgrading your old one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it gave you some good information. If so, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.